They call him Seatin, the man of legends.
Hey, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? It is Seatin here. Welcome to a video where I'm going to be talking about a variety of hints and pro tips for clearing Nightmare Tide Expert Dungeons. I have had so many messages and emails and stuff saying that Nightmare Tide Expert Dungeons are really hard on the tank damage. That is kind of like the main difficulty of them. The thing that makes them really hard is that the tank damage on everything is absolutely crazy. So I'm going to share kind of the tips and tricks that I have come up with and we've kind of thought of to deal with the tank damage on a variety of in a variety of situations. That finally got the right words there. So the first thing we're going to talk about is tanking. So currently for Nightmare Tide experts, right, both rogue tanks and mage tanks are very OP. Now, these are actually for avoidance reasons. I actually haven't tanked any on my rogue, but when we're running with the guild, we usually use a rogue tank. This is because, like, avoidance is really good for trashes and bosses with a lot of ads, and especially more of the most, like, difficult encounters in the experts do have a lot of ads and stuff that you have to deal with, so this is why avoidance is really OP. So if you have, for example, a Riftstalker tank that is spec'd with a few points in Blade Dancer, you can pick up additional dodge chance, and you can also get sidesteps. With sort of the rogue masteries, you can actually up the duration of sidesteps to about 21 seconds, so that kind of gives you overall, for those 21 seconds combined with the already existing stats that you probably have, about a 60 to 70% chance to dodge every attack, which greatly reduces the amount of tank damage, incoming, and that can be used every 2 minutes. It's brilliant for very large kind of AoE pools, and especially on kind of bosses like the second one in Gael, near the end of the encounter, when you have tons and tons of dogs beating on you, and you really want to try and avoid as much damage as possible, just to make the healer's life a lot easier. So that is kind of the first pro tip. Also, if you're a mage, you can invest 61 in Arbiter, and then 15 points in Harbinger. Then you kind of get, I believe it is 10% passive dodge, 10% passive parry, and then you also get the ability Blazing Light, which will give you another 10% dodge. So that's an additional 30% kind of solid mitigation all of the time, and now I'm not being attacked by the evasion, it's all good. So that is a brilliant way to kind of, negate some of the damage and make your healer's life a bit easier. Now, the second tip that we're going to go on to talk about is basically AoE debilitates. Now, there are two classes that can really bring this to the table, which are Saboteur and Kabbalist. So both clerics and rogues really do kind of bring this to the table. Now, this is mainly kind of a trash tip, but it does work on a lot of the bosses. This is kind of how we easily get around the hard-hitting trash in Imperium Core. Now, let me just switch over to my Saboteur spec, actually, just to demonstrate this a bit more practically. So, basically, both Saboteur and Kabbalist have an AoE debilitate. Saboteurs have Choking Gas Bomb, and Kabbalist has Sigil of Secrecy, both of which provide a debilitate for sort of the set duration. So, what you can do, let me just run over to a mod to sort of provide a very brief example of how this works, sort of in an expert dungeon environment. Basically, if mobs are debilitated, they usually, like 80% of the time, will not cast anything at all. They will just sit there and attack you. So, for example, we debilitate this shark, and typically it works on him. It doesn't work on him. that is so bloody typical. But for the majority of trash and experts, right, if you throw down a debilitate, they are going to sit there and do nothing for that duration. And then if you use sort of resetting cooldowns, like for example on the Saboteur, you have carpet bombing, you can actually chain debilitates for 30 seconds upward, and really just ensure that the trash does nothing, the tank damage is nothing, while you have 2 DPS burning stuff down. Obviously, unfortunately with Saboteur, you can't really continue the rotation that well, because if you do continue your rotation, you're going to be using up stacks of carpet bombing, which means that basically you can't debilitate for as long. So you want to throw that down, wait 8 seconds for it to expire, throw another one down, and GG. That is how we deal with sort of the majority of harder trash packs, which at the moment are mainly the ones in sort of Citadel of Insanity and Imperium Core. And it also works with Sigil of Secrecy on Kabbalist. You use that. and then you sort of reset the cooldown of it and get the free sort of instacast ones, and then you kind of want to chain those on to ensure the mobs, don't really do anything. You also have an AoE stun in Cabalist, so that is also very, very useful for dealing with all sorts of trash, and the AoE purge can be very, very nice as well, especially on mobs that maybe have like a hard-hitting weapon enchantment. So that is pretty cool. Another pro tip that we wanted to throw out there works as well on bosses like in, what is it, Lord, I believe he's called Lord Dalarak, the Shadow Lord in Nightmare Coast, the fight with a load of ads. When they become enraged, just AoE debilitate, GG, you have won the fight. Now, the last thing I do want to talk about are healers in expert dungeons. Now, currently, there are, in my honest opinion, as a fresh level 65, there are only 2 healing specs that can easily, quote-unquote, heal expert dungeons. For any other healing spec, it is going to be a massive, massive pain in the ass. Those 2 healing specs are Purifier and Physician. Like, the other healing specs just do not compare to them at all. So again, Cleric and Rogue, OP. Just OP. So Purifier is by far the #1 healing spec for dungeons, because literally there isn't that much AoE healing in any of the dungeons. The damage is all going to be tank based, and that's where Purifier and Physician are both very, very strong specs. They have a lot of absorb shields to kind of handle the bursty damage, Purifier especially, and Purifier, if you apply your shield and it gets removed within 3 seconds, it applies another one. So that is just equally more OP for Purifier and makes it an amazing spec to heal dungeons. Liberator, Chloromancer, Sentinel, it kind of is possible to heal expert dungeons with them. But you're going to need a bit of gear first. You can't go straight in off the bat and expect to, heal a freshly geared tank when you're freshly geared and have a good time. I have personally healed on pretty much every class and spec for expert dungeons, apart from the Chloromancer at the moment. But I have seen so many Chloromancers just fail at healing expert dungeons. So I'd say for an easy time, if you want easy group composition, then you want sort of, you playing either a Purifier or Physician, or somebody in your group using that role to heal. Apart from that, the kind of standard tip is literally every class is going to need a ranged DPS spec. There are fights become melee friendly once you learn them and learn when to run in and out, etc. But for sort of an easy time and sort of learning the encounters, the timings, etc., when you first go into dungeons, you are probably going to want to play a ranged spec, and it's quite good in this expansion because ranged specs are really pulling a nice amount of DPS. So for example, if you're a cleric, you want to play Inquisitor. Inquisitor is just awesome in every way at the moment. If you're mage, you want to play Pyromancer. If you are a rogue, Ranger is a very, very good spec at the moment, and Diffuse is awesome for dealing with a variety of hard-hitting mechanics and basically shielding yourself throughout them. And then finally as Warrior, you have Tempest. Tempest, in my opinion, at kind of low gear levels is not quite as good as the other 3 specs, but still it is an effective spec that will get you through expert dungeons. You will be able to do stuff, and that is pretty badass. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed kind of the quick tips for dealing with expert dungeons, kind of just I'm reeling out a few pro tips here of how you can kind of handle stuff. Thank you for watching the video. Have an absolutely great day, and if you want to see more videos, feel free to subscribe to the channel, like the video, or maybe even leave a nice comment, depending on, if you're that kind of nice and special person. Anyway, once again, take care and have an absolutely great day, guys.